Does it ever seem that the world is just crazy? It runs on crazy rules and things don't make sense? Well, let's look at who runs the world. If you are awake at all, you know that 51% or more of the wealth of the world is in the hands of about 6,000 people. That's 6,000 out of 6 billion. They have their own interests at heart, and it's not necessarily our well-being. The people that are in power right now share a few common traits, a few common threads run through the whole thing. And this video, I think, will enlighten you, and at the end I will give some suggestions on where you can find other information about the subject if you find it interesting.
It wasn't that long ago that those who claimed that there was a massive paedophile ring involving officials in the highest levels of government were written off as conspiracy theorists and kooks. That is no longer the case, at least in the UK. It turns out that this so-called conspiracy theory was true and is finally being officially investigated.
A powerful elite of at least 20 prominent establishment figures formed a VIP paedophile ring that abused children for decades. Senior politicians, military figures, and even people linked to the royal family are among the alleged abusers. Peter McKelvey, the former child protection officer who first raised the alarm about high-profile individuals engaged in child sex abuse, said that their campaign of abuse may have been going on for as long as 65 years, but there has always been the block and the cover-up and the collusion to prevent an investigation.
Over the years, we've received many allegations of abuse at the highest levels of government. Past prime ministers, past senior members of the British cabinet have been mentioned as abusing children. It doesn't get much worse than that. We're talking about the worst kind of crime committed by the people who are supposed to be running the country.
A teenage boy working at Buckingham Palace revealed he was groomed and sexually abused by a VIP paedophile ring there. The lad was also assaulted at the royal family's Scottish retreat Balmoral. In a heartbreaking note, the boy, then just 16, told how he was the victim of exploitation of the highest order. The disturbing account was passed directly to the then Home Secretary Leon Britton, but he ruled it was not practical to investigate. Palace officials have already been linked to the notorious brothel, the Elm Guest House in southwest London. It was first in 2008 that news about deep roots of paedophilia inside Buckingham Palace emerged. Former Buckingham Palace butler was unmasked as a sexual predator who ran a paedophile ring while serving the royal family. Bachelor Paul Kidd, 55, was leading a secret double life as a serial child abuser who molested a string of boys over a 30-year period.
Well, it seems that in Great Britain, protecting paedophile politicians is now turning to a matter of national security. Those with the sickest minds and who wish to act upon their destructive fantasies understand that they can most easily get away with their deeds if they are protected by an aura of power and ostensible respectability.
Government will establish an independent inquiry panel of experts in the law and child protection to consider whether public bodies and other non-state institutions have taken seriously their duty of care to protect children from sexual abuse.
Victims of child sexual abuse have warned Theresa May they will withdraw from the government's controversial official inquiry unless major changes are made. In an open letter, 24 signatories claimed the inquiry as it stands is not fit for purpose because of what it is being asked to examine and the proposed chairs. The signatories said they had no option but to end engagement with the inquiry until Mrs May scrapped the current panel, replacing it on a transparent basis, declared a statutory inquiry and extended the cut-off date to 1945. They wrote to Home Secretary Theresa May's officials complaining the Home Office seems to be running the inquiry to meet others' needs rather than those of survivors.
We need three things: justice and support for victims, the truth about what happened and how the Home Office and others responded, and stronger child protection and reforms for the future.
After the release of a report into Home Office cover-ups last month, Mr Cameron seemed to dismiss survivors' concerns, saying some who've been looking for conspiracy theories will have to look elsewhere. She had already warned that allegations of child sex abuse by a Westminster paedophile ring represent only the tip of the iceberg.
Just a reminder, the royal family is granted absolute protection from public scrutiny in a controversial legal reform designed to draw a veil of secrecy over the affairs of the Queen, Prince Charles and Prince William. With the elite paedophile ring now being exposed in the UK, all roads are leading to the British royal family. Some claim this law was passed to keep this connection hidden, but as we now know, Prince Charles's favourite was Jimmy Savile, who is the biggest paedophile and necrophiliac in modern British history.
And see, they had to burn Hastert because they can't have the whole ring come out. Just like they sent the former head of the FBI to cover up Penn State, that's basically one of the major pedophile command bases. And it'll all come out just like the Vatican. None of you guys are going to stop any of it. You know, this year they called it 2 months ago national security. The Prime Minister of England said it's now a national security emergency and that they have to basically seal the pedophile scandal because of national security, because it goes from the royal family right through Parliament, right into local government. You say, statistically, maybe only 1 out of 200 people, if you look at the criminology, is a pedophile. Why are they seem to be every other person in government worldwide? Because it's a cult, people. Rome got taken over by perv cults. Take one look at Hastert and sees a big, giant, pus-filled pedophile. And then you understand Barney Frank with his underage callboy ring run out of his 3-story townhouse and no one got in trouble. That came out in the 90s. And the midnight callboy ring over 200 times, underage, quote, callboys. I mean, imagine hundreds of people under 18, men, going to the White House to have sex. That was even the Washington Times. Nobody got in trouble. All these pages they get caught having sex with, male and female, mainly male, both parties. You're like, why is this happening? Because they recruit their people in, and it's a rite of passage that you rape children or you rape young people, and that's how you get into the cult. With the Crips or the Bloods, you got to go shoot a rival gang member. You got to kill a liquor store owner. You got to shoot at a cop to really become a made member of hardcore gangs. And I think that's disgusting, you know, shooting a cop, killing a liquor store owner, whatever. But, man, I got to say, it's not as sick as, like, having a pedo cult. It's all sick. I mean, you know, it's by degrees, but, I mean, it's really sick. And that's who runs America. You wonder why stuff's so twisted? Why Jocelyn Elders got up during the Clinton administration and said, teach 5-year-olds how to masturbate? Reach down and help the little fellows. That creepy voice, a woman in an admiral outfit. These are freaks, folks. These are sickos. And they get up there on MSNBC and they tell you, your kids belong to the state now. Remember that promo? Melissa Harris Perry? It's all about outrageousness. We're going to teach your 5-year-olds that Bobby has 2 daddies. And it's not to teach so you don't hate people. It's to get little kids all screwed up, thinking about stuff that it shouldn't even be on their radar till they're 18 years old. California says, we'll inoculate your kids without your consent if we get their consent down to age 11. Children don't have consent till 18. There's a reason, because sick freaks can convince them. What's next? That's right. England and Australia are trying to pass laws that down to age 12 or 13, depending on the country, if your child gives consent, let me tell you somebody. You go after one of my daughters when they're 13, and I've got one that's 11, and you say you had consent, you're some 30-year-old pervert, I don't care what the law is, you're going to be pushing daisies. And, but then I'll be a pedophobe. In fact, that's already starting, see? Let some old man love my 7-year-old daughter. I got a 7-year-old daughter. You know what? A ball-peen hammer is going to love your head. When I saw some emails and some comments on Thursday and Friday at Infowars.com with trolls saying, you better watch it, claiming Hastard's a pedophile, you crazy conspiracy theorist. None of the media is saying why he was paying somebody allegedly to hush him up. Really, we had an investigative journalist on who documented it and said that they were basically blackmailing him. That's why he was chosen as a wrestling coach to suddenly be run for the State House and then into the House of Representatives and then be made Speaker of the House, even though his tenure was incredibly junior. And now The Hill is talking about Dennis Hastard's weird call from 2014 on C-SPAN when somebody called in and said, remember me, Denny? Well, everybody can eat crow yet again. Here it is in the precious New York Times. Yorkville, where Hastard's taught, is shaken by charges for Denny. Former House Speaker Dennis Hastert accused of hiding sex abuse of former student. You better believe it's students. And this guy is in the club, folks, the Sandusky Club, like the rest of the Republican leadership. Hastert, star wrestler, standing behind indicted mentor, though, so everything's okay. Here's the headline out of CNN. Hastert's hush money was to cover up sexual misconduct with former student, sources say. As if it took the media 3-4 days to figure this out.
It is hard to smear a 13-year-old girl and a host of other teenagers that were part of a harem of underage sex slaves. Jeffrey Epstein was indicted and imprisoned for keeping dozens of underage girls on his Caribbean island estate to satisfy his sick sexual appetite. And Bill Clinton was no stranger to Epstein, frequently flying to his private island on one of Epstein's many private jets. Plastered on the walls of Epstein's island mansion, according to a lawsuit and information provided by teenage sex slave Virginia Roberts, were lewd photos of underage girls. According to Virginia Roberts, Bill Clinton, sitting at the table with 2 other underage sex slaves, didn't seem to mind the arrangement of Epstein's sexual proclivities or the child porn plastered on the walls or the frequent orgies at Epstein's estate. Virginia Roberts was one of at least 20 underage girls, one as young as 13, that were part of Epstein's pedophile ring that serviced politicians and British royalty. Most of the girls have been paid off with Epstein's billions to keep their mouths shut. Some say specifically to keep quiet about Bill Clinton's exploits at the Caribbean island pedophile paradise. But this just scratches the surface. The lawsuit claims that Bill Clinton had close contact with one of Jeffrey Epstein's employees who kept thousands of photos of underage children, posed in lewd sexual positions. The photos were sort of a catalog of Epstein's sex slaves made available for the rich and powerful to pick and choose from. If Bill Clinton's pedophilia is exposed as being true, prepare for another Hillary Clinton smear campaign against Slick Willie's victims, and a cry of a vast right-wing conspiracy. Or perhaps if the Democrats get their way and vote Hillary Clinton in as president in 2016, Hillary Clinton will sweep away her husband's pedophilia with a presidential pardon. The butcher of Benghazi will then become the protector of pedophiles, unless the American people put a stop to the abomination of Bill and Hillary Clinton.
With all the pomp and circumstance, the Pope can also expect public protests and harsh criticism over his role in dealing with the sex abuse scandal that has cost the Church $2 billion and great embarrassment. And there are specific questions for the Pope over how he personally dealt with more than 19 U.S. bishops and cardinals accused of covering up the scandal or abusing children themselves. Not a single one of the 19 accused bishops has lost his title or been prosecuted, including the former Bishop of Palm Beach, Anthony O'Connell, alleged by former students to have abused them.
He should be in jail, definitely.
But to the outrage of his accusers, Bishop O'Connell now lives on the beautiful grounds of the Trappist Mepkin Abbey in South Carolina, his title still intact, never publicly censored by the Vatican. In the case of Cardinal Bernard Law, the former Archbishop of Boston, his alleged efforts to cover up abuse by dozens of priests cost the Church tens of millions of dollars. But Cardinal Law was given a new prestigious post at this basilica in Rome and remains a cardinal. The Pope was involved in many of the decisions before he became Pope, as Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who became upset when ABC News tried to ask him about a sexual abuse case involving a senior church official in 2002.
But come to me when the moment is given, not yet.
Victims groups question the Pope's sincerity, saying he has refused to meet with them here or the representatives, so they plan to protest when he arrives in New York on Thursday.
The Vatican launching an all-out defense of the Pope as a priest abuse scandal rocks his native homeland. Catholic officials saying there is an aggressive attempt to drag Pope Benedict XVI into a growing controversy in Germany. The Pope under fire after the Munich Archdiocese admitted it did not take appropriate action against a suspected pedophile priest while Benedict was Archbishop there. The pontiff now encouraging Germany's church to press ahead with a thorough investigation into the abuse allegations.
Well, the Catholic Church is now officially a pedophile organization. It's no more, I didn't know when I heard some conspiracy theory. They lowered the protection age of minors to 12 now.
Keeping them honest tonight, potentially hundreds of military employees and contractors who may have bought child pornography online but haven't been prosecuted or even in some cases investigated. That's right, you heard me, child pornography. As many as 1,700 names, according to a U.S. Senator, on a list of 5,200 from an internet sting operation overlooked the first time around 4 years ago.
Some of them are pedophiles, want to grow up little kids. Some of them want to grow up women. Some of them want to grow up men. I told the story of Vegas, and I'm not claiming I'm the best looking guy around. But I didn't want to do the naked body scanner, so, I opted to be searched. You can tell when they're just doing a real search versus the groping. And, I mean, this guy took 4 minutes. It seemed like it took an hour. And he got down on his knees in front of me and was just smacking his lips. And it was totally homoerotic. I mean, he was just really telling me he was a listener, just listened to the show, told me what was on the show the day before. Heard me do the show from my Las Vegas hotel room in between shooting Jesse Ventura's TV show. And he was just overcome with lust. I mean, it was like when I had women. getting excited before I was married or whatever, and you're about to, not to get graphic, but jump in the sack, that passionate look. I mean, it was like guy on his knees looking at me, rubbing on my tight T-shirt, down my chest, down to my groin, and I'm just like, this is unbelievable. And I looked down, and he was smacking his lips. I mean, I have experienced this. Told you the story many times. Here it is, confirmed. And if it happened to me, folks, imagine if he was really a good-looking guy. I mean, can you imagine if it was some hard-body beach boy, what that would have been like? And, oh, but it's okay because they're gay.
Do you remember the housing bubble during the Clinton administration when banks that were forced by the Clinton administration to give loans to people that didn't qualify? Inflated the prices of houses, and then when it finally burst, millions of Americans lost their money. Many of them lost their life savings. Barney Frank was the chairman of the banking committee, and his gay lover was working for Fannie Mae, who was getting huge bonuses, millions of dollars in bonuses for the loans that later failed and cost everyone their money. That is how you game the system and steal the wealth of the public. Let us recall Barney Frank, the banking queen. Take it away, Paul Schenckler.
Friday night and your cash is low. I know a place that you can go. Oh, against your house and use it. Go ahead, abuse it. You can do anything. Go out and have a fling. I am the banking queen. Old and sweet, didn't do a thing. Banking queen, don't complain or you'll hear me sing. Oh, yeah. You can build, you can buy any house your heart desires. Ooh, zero down, financing. I am the banking queen. Told the bankers, hey you guys, make the loans or you'll be high. My friends, the furniture needed, do it my way or beat it while the stock's flashing. That doesn't mean a thing. I'm still the banking queen, never spanked for a single thing. Banking queen, don't complain or you'll hear me scream. Oh, yeah. You can build, you can buy any house your heart desires. Ooh, zero down, financing. I am the banking queen. I am the banking queen.
Things you might look into online and research are Bohemian Grove, anything to do with the Vatican. It's one of the most corrupt organizations on the face of the planet. Skull and Bones, the Freemasons and Disney productions. Whatever you do, keep your children away from anything to do with Disney until you find out more about it. This is Cat Burglar saying, be well, be awake, and do the research. It's an interesting world.